The message spread through the alien fleet like wildfire. Every ship, every computer, every communication device showed the same words. Omega Protocol activated. Vexthari stared at the screens in confusion. What is this? How did you get into our systems? President Harper continued to smile. You made a big mistake. You thought we were primitive. You thought we were weak because we are young. Around the room, the other aliens started to panic. Their translators were acting strange. Some showed human words mixed with alien languages. Others showed pictures of Earth that they had never seen before. Susan Adams, who was supposed to be just a translator, spoke in perfect alien language. She knew words that no human should know, words that were secrets of the Council. We have been listening to you for 50 years, Susan said in the clicking language of Vexthari's people. We know about your technology. We know about your politics. We know about your crimes. Tony Rodriguez and Kim Allen, the bodyguards, pulled out weapons that should not have existed. The aliens had scanned them. Their security was perfect. Nothing dangerous could get past their machines. But these weapons had passed through like they were toys. Out in space, Jake Morrison watched the alien fleet from his ship. Something amazing was happening. The alien ships were starting to shoot at each other. What is going on out there? Pete Williams asked as he watched alien ships fire on their own allies. Amy Carter checked her instruments. Their targeting computers are going crazy. Their navigation systems are sending ships into each other. And their communication array is completely under our control. Jake smiled. This was the plan. For 5 years, Dr. Helen Barnes had been working on tiny robots. These robots were smaller than dust. They could get into any machine and take control of it. But the real genius was the timing. While the Council was making demands and threatening Earth, human ships had been secretly releasing clouds of these tiny robots into space. Every alien ship that came near Earth got infected without knowing it. The robots were smart. They did not do anything at first. They just hid and waited. But when President Harper said the magic words, they all woke up at the same time. Dr. Barnes watched from her command center deep inside a mountain on Earth. Her computers showed her everything happening in the alien fleet. Red dots showed ships that were disabled. Yellow dots showed ships that were confused. Green dots showed ships that were completely under human control. Phase 2 is complete, she reported to General Thompson. Their fleet is neutralized. We can begin Phase 3 whenever you are ready. On the alien command ship, chaos was spreading. Vexthari's own ship was turning its weapons toward his allies. The beautiful formation that had scared humans was now a mess of crashing ships and accidental weapons fire. This is impossible, Vexthari hissed. No species has ever been able to hack our systems. Our technology is thousands of years old. It is perfect, President Harper laughed. That is your problem. Your technology is old. Ours is new. Your computers think in straight lines. Ours can think around corners. The truth was even more shocking than the aliens realized. While the Council banned artificial intelligence and called it dangerous, humans had embraced it completely. Human AI was not just smart. It was creative. It could learn and adapt and solve problems that no alien computer could handle. The human AI systems had not just broken into the alien computers. They had learned how alien technology worked. They had studied it and understood it, and then turned it against its creators. Paul Mitchell, the Secretary of State, was actually a computer expert. He had been studying alien technology for 20 years. Your mistake was thinking that AI was just a tool, he told the aliens. Our AI are our partners. They think with us, not for us. Throughout the fleet, the evidence of human superiority became clear. Ships that should have been impossible to hack were shutting down. Weapons systems were firing at random targets. Navigation computers were sending vessels into collision courses with asteroids. But the most shocking thing was the communication breakdown. The alien fleet had no way to talk to each other. Every message they tried to send was blocked or changed by human AI. Orders became gibberish. Status reports became jokes. Emergency signals became music from Earth. On his ship, Jake Morrison was getting reports from all over the solar system. How many of their ships are still working? He asked Amy. About 50 are still under their control, Amy reported, but they are scattered and confused. 200 ships are completely disabled. The rest are under our control or destroying each other. And casualties on our side? 0, sir. We have not fired a single shot. Jake nodded with satisfaction. This was how humans fought wars. Not with bigger guns or stronger armor, but with better ideas and superior planning. The Alien Council had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had crushed every species that challenged them. They had destroyed civilizations and wiped out entire planets. They thought they were unbeatable, but they had never fought humans before. Back on the command ship, Vexithari was desperate. "What do you want? Money, territory? We can negotiate." President Harper shook her head. "We do not want to negotiate. We want to send a message." "What message?" "That the age of the Council is over. That freedom has come to the galaxy. And that anyone who threatens Earth will learn exactly why humans became the top predators on their world." Susan Adams was still speaking in alien languages, but now she was broadcasting to the entire fleet. She was telling them about human history, about wars and revolutions, about how humans had always fought against anyone who tried to rule them. "Your council has ruled through fear for 3,000 years, she said. "But fear only works if your enemies believe you are stronger than them. Today, you learn that you are not." The aliens in the room were listening to reports from their fleet. Ship after ship was reporting total system failure. Some ships were dead in space. Others were flying in circles. A few were actually dancing, their AI systems programmed to perform human ballet moves. "You have destroyed our fleet," Vexithari said quietly. "What happens now?" President Harper walked closer to the giant insect alien. Even though he was 3 times her size, he stepped backward. "Now," she said, "we begin Phase 3. We are going to tell the galaxy the truth about the Council, and we are going to give every enslaved species the tools they need to be free." Dr. Barnes's voice came through the communication system. "Madam President, we are ready to begin the next phase. All data packages are prepared for transmission." "What data packages?" Vexithari demanded. President Harper smiled one last time before things got really interesting for the Galactic Council. "Every technology we used against you today, every AI system, every tiny robot, every weapon design, we are about to give it all away to every species in the galaxy, for free." The room fell silent except for the sound of alien ships exploding in the distance. The message that went out across the galaxy was not just a communication, it was a revolution. Using the Council's own communication networks, humanity broadcast something that would change everything. The first part was simple video footage showing the alien fleet being destroyed by their own ships. But that was just the beginning. Frank Collins had been preparing for this moment for 30 years. His spies had been everywhere gathering information about the Council's secrets. Now all of that information was being sent to every planet in the galaxy. The files showed 3,000 years of lies. The Council had not kept peace in the galaxy. They had kept control through murder and fear. Any species that became too smart or too strong was eliminated. On the industrial world of Kepler 442b, workers stopped their machines to watch the human broadcast. For 200 years, the Vorton people had been slaves. The Council told them their home planet had been destroyed by a natural disaster. Now they learned the truth. Their planet had been bombed by Council ships. The Vortan crime was developing quantum computers. The Council decided they were becoming too dangerous and wiped out their civilization. Only the workers on other planets survived. Catherine was a Vortan engineer who had spent his whole life believing the Council's lies. He watched the human broadcast in shock as documents appeared on his screen. Ship logs, military orders, video recordings of Council meetings where they planned the destruction of his world. "They murdered billions of our people," he whispered to his fellow workers, "and they made us thank them for saving us." On Proxima Centauri, the refugee camps of the Zephyrian colonies received the same shocking news. The plague that had devastated their species was not natural. It was a bioweapon created by Council scientists and deployed by Council ships. Dr. Yelnara, the chief medical officer of the largest refugee camp, stared at the biological weapon specifications with growing horror. She recognized the markers. She had studied this plague for 20 years trying to find a cure. Now she knew it was designed to be incurable. "They created a disease specifically to kill us," she told her staff, "and then they offered to help us find planets where the survivors could live. They made themselves our saviors after they became our destroyers. But humanity did not just reveal the Council's crimes. They provided the tools for revenge." Dr. Barnes had prepared data packages for 47 different species. Each package contained complete technical specifications for human technology. AI systems that could liberate enslaved peoples. tiny robots that could disable Council control systems, weapons that could destroy Council ships. More importantly, each package was designed to be easily understood. Human engineers had spent months figuring out how to explain advanced technology in simple terms. Every species in the galaxy could build these weapons. No matter what their technology level was, the effect was immediate and devastating. On Zentara Prime, the Council's capital world, Speaker Vexithari watched his empire fall apart in real time. Rebellion erupted on 12 worlds simultaneously. Council ships sent to stop the uprisings were destroyed by rebels using human technology. The Kepler uprising was led by Kethron himself. Using human-provided nanobots, he disabled the planetary defense grid that had kept his people enslaved. Vortan workers seized control of their factories and began building human weapons. The Zephyrian colonies struck back at their oppressors with deadly efficiency. Dr. Yelnara used human AI systems to coordinate perfect ambush tactics. Council ships entered the Proxima system expecting to crush weak refugees. Instead, they found organized armies equipped with weapons that could punch through Council shields. Jake Morrison, now promoted to Admiral, coordinated humanity's support for the various rebellions from his command ship. The USS Liberty had become the flagship of a new fleet. Earth had built 20 more ships in the months since first contact, all equipped with the latest human technology. Status report, Jake ordered as he watched the tactical display. Amy Carter, now his chief communications officer, checked her screens. 17 worlds have declared independence from the Council. 23 more are in active rebellion. Council response fleets are being systematically destroyed by rebels using our technology. What about our assistance packages? Deployed to over 60 species across the galaxy. Even groups we have never contacted are receiving the data through rebel networks. The information is spreading faster than the Council can stop it. Pete Williams, now Jake's weapons officer, looked up from his station. Admiral, we are receiving requests for direct military assistance from 14 different rebel groups. Jake nodded. Approved. Send battle groups to support any world fighting for freedom. The galaxy was learning what humans had always known. Freedom was worth fighting for, and no one had the right to rule others without their consent. On distant worlds, species that had been enslaved for centuries were suddenly free. The insectoid Melthari had been forced to build Council ships for 800 years. Now they used human designs to build weapons that could destroy those same ships. The crystalline architects had been forced to construct the beautiful buildings that made Council worlds look peaceful and prosperous. Now they used human AI to design fortress cities that could withstand Council bombardment. The aquatic depth swimmers had been harvested for their unique biological compounds for 500 years. Now they used human biotechnology to create underwater cities where Council forces could not reach them. Every species had a different story, but they all had the same ending: freedom through human technology and human ideas about liberty. Back on the Council flagship, Vexithari faced a nightmare that kept getting worse. His own species, the proud Zentari, were starting to question the Council's authority. Reports were coming in of Zentari colonies refusing to send tribute to the capital. How many ships do we still control? He asked his military commander. Fewer than 100 across the entire galaxy, came the grim reply. The rebels have captured or destroyed the rest, and our remaining ships are running out of supplies because the industrial worlds have stopped producing for us. Vexithari looked at the human president, who was still standing calmly in his command chamber. She had been there for 6 hours, watching his empire collapse with a small smile on her face. You have destroyed the order of the galaxy, he said. There will be chaos, war, suffering. President Harper shook her head. There will be freedom. Some species will fight each other, yes, but they will fight as equals, not as masters and slaves. And those who choose peace will be protected. Protected by whom? By us, by humanity, by anyone who believes that all people deserve to be free. Susan Adams was still broadcasting to the galaxy, but now she was sharing something new: the Articles of Galactic Freedom. A simple document that outlined basic rights for all intelligent species: the right to govern themselves, the right to develop their own technology, the right to be left alone if they chose peace. Any species that signs these articles will be under the protection of the Terran Federation, Susan announced. Any species that attacks a signatory will face the combined might of Earth and our allies. The revolution was becoming something more than revenge. It was becoming the foundation of a new kind of galaxy, where strength protected the weak instead of exploiting them. Vexathari realized that his 3,000-year-old empire was not just falling. It was being replaced by something completely different, something that might actually work. 3 months after the first broadcast, the galaxy was on fire with revolution. The Kepler system had become the center of the largest uprising in galactic history. Kethron, the Vortan engineer, now commanded a fleet of 300 ships. All of them were built using human technology by workers who had been slaves just months before. "Target the Council supply depot," Kethron ordered as his ships approached the heavily defended station. "Use the pattern the humans taught us." The Vortan ships moved in perfect coordination. Human AI systems helped them communicate instantly across vast distances. Human weapons cut through Council shields like they were made of paper. In 30 minutes, a station that should have taken weeks to capture was completely under rebel control. Dr. Yelnara was having similar success in the Proxima system. The Zephyrian refugees had transformed their camps into military bases. Using human biotechnology, they had even found a cure for the plague that had nearly destroyed their species. "The cure is working," she reported to her commanders. "Our population is recovering, and our new ships are ready for the assault on the Council medical facilities." The Council had kept samples of every bioweapon they had ever created in secret laboratories. The Zephyrians were going to destroy those labs and make sure no other species would suffer like they had. On Earth, President Harper watched the rebellion spread across the galaxy from her command center. The wall screen showed dozens of star systems where freedom fighters were winning battles against their former masters. "How many systems have declared independence?" she asked Frank Collins. 87 confirmed, Frank replied. 43 more are in active rebellion. The Council now controls less than 30% of their former territory. General Thompson looked up from his tactical displays. "And their response?" "Desperation," Frank said with satisfaction. "They are pulling back their forces to protect the core worlds. Some Council species are even fighting each other over who gets to control the remaining ships." The revolution was succeeding beyond humanity's wildest dreams, but it was also creating new challenges. Admiral Jake Morrison was dealing with one of those challenges right now. His fleet was approaching the Tau Ceti system, where a Council garrison was holding 2 million civilians hostage. "They are threatening to execute the hostages if we attack," Amy Carter reported from the communications station. Jake studied the tactical situation. The Council commander was desperate, but he still had enough firepower to carry out his threat. A direct assault would save the system but cost millions of lives. "Get me Dr. Barnes," Jake ordered. Helen Barnes appeared on the main screen from her laboratory on Earth. "I have been expecting your call. Admiral, you need the nanobots to disable their weapons without triggering the hostage protocol. Can you do it?" "Already done. I have been developing specialized nanobots for this exact situation. They can infiltrate the Council ships and disable only the weapons that threaten civilians. The rest of their systems will remain functional until you are ready to accept their surrender." The nanobots were launched from stealth drones that the Council sensors could not detect. Within an hour, the ships holding the civilians captive found their weapon systems completely disabled. Jake's fleet moved in and accepted the surrender of the entire garrison without firing a shot. Similar rescues were happening across the galaxy. Human technology was not just destroying the Council's military power. It was making precise surgical strikes that saved as many lives as possible. But not all Council species were surrendering peacefully. The hegemony, a warrior species that had served as the Council's primary military force, chose to fight to the end. Their ships were stronger and better armed than most rebels could handle. That was where humanity stepped in directly. The Battle of Rigel 7 became the largest space battle in galactic history. 2,000 hegemony ships faced a combined fleet of human vessels and rebel allies. The battle lasted 3 days and ended with the complete destruction of the hegemony warfleet. Captain Steve Roberts, commanding the human dreadnought USS Constitution, watched the last hegemony ship explode on his tactical display. "That is the end of their military power," he reported to Admiral Morrison. "The hegemony homeworld is defenseless, but humanity chose mercy over revenge. Instead of bombarding the hegemony planet, they offered terms. The warrior species could surrender and face trial for their crimes, or they could be relocated to a frontier world where they could start over. Most chose relocation, The hegemony warriors became farmers and builders on empty worlds, using their discipline and strength for creation instead of destruction. The academics, a species of scholars who had helped the council maintain control through propaganda, made a different choice. They surrendered immediately and offered to help document the council's crimes. Dr. Miranda Walsh, a human historian, worked with academic researchers to create a complete record of the council's 3,000-year reign. The documents they produced would ensure that future generations never forgot what happened when one group tried to rule over all others. The scope of their crimes is unbelievable, Dr. Walsh reported to President Harper. Genocide, slavery, biological warfare, forced relocation, cultural destruction. They did not just rule the galaxy. They tried to reshape it in their image. Some council species faced a different fate entirely. The architects, who had built the beautiful cities on council worlds, revealed that they had been slaves for over 1,000 years. They had been forced to create the artwork and buildings that made the council look civilized and peaceful. When the revolution freed them, the architects made an interesting choice. They destroyed their own creations. The crystalline towers on Zentara Prime were brought down not by human weapons, but by their own builders. The architects wanted to erase every trace of their forced servitude and start over with their own designs. Zefhari, the chief architect, explained their decision to human reporters. Those buildings were beautiful, but they were built with our tears. Every tower represents a year of slavery. Every graceful curve was designed under threat of death. We choose to build new beauty, created in freedom. The revolution was changing more than just political control. It was giving species the chance to rediscover who they really were, when no one was forcing them to be something else. On Zentara Prime, Vexthari watched his empire crumble from his palace windows. The beautiful city outside was being systematically demolished by its own creators. Rebel ships filled the sky above the capital. His own species, the Zentari, had abandoned him. Most had joined the rebellion. Others had simply left to find new homes on frontier worlds. Only a few thousand remained loyal to the old ways. "What will happen to us?" asked his aide, a young Zentari who had never known life without the council. Vexthari looked at the human president, who was still in his custody, but somehow seemed to be the one in control of everything. "Ask her," he said quietly. "She seems to be in charge of the galaxy now." President Harper walked to the window and looked out at the city being torn down below. "That depends on what you choose," she said. "You can face trial for your crimes and accept whatever punishment your victims decide. Or you can help us build something better." "What do you mean?" "Help us create a new government, one based on cooperation instead of domination. Use your experience to help us avoid the mistakes that created the council in the first place." Vexthari was shocked. After everything he had done, the humans were offering him a chance at redemption. The galaxy was learning something new about humanity. They were not just good at war. They were even better at peace. 1 year after the first human broadcast, the galaxy was completely different. The Galactic Council was gone. The beautiful towers on Zentara Prime were now ruins, overgrown with plants that the architects had allowed to grow wild. Nature was reclaiming the symbols of oppression. In orbit around Earth, a new structure was taking shape. The Galactic Assembly building was not like the old council towers. It was designed by representatives from over 100 species, each contributing their own ideas about what freedom should look like. President Harper floated in the zero gravity of the construction zone, watching workers from dozens of different worlds putting the final pieces in place. Vortan engineers worked alongside human technicians. Zephyrian artists painted murals next to architect sculptors. Former enemies were becoming friends. "It is beautiful," said Kethron, the Vortan who had led the first successful rebellion. He was now the elected representative of his people to the new assembly. Dr. Yelnara, representing the Zephyrian colonies, nodded in agreement. "My people have a saying, freedom shared is freedom multiplied. I never understood it until now." The assembly was based on a simple idea that humans had brought to the galaxy. Government should serve the people, not rule them. Every species could send representatives, but no one species could control the others. Decisions were made by agreement, not by force. Admiral Jake Morrison watched the construction from his new flagship, the USS Democracy. Earth had become the unofficial protector of galactic freedom. But they shared that responsibility with anyone who wanted to help. Status report on the protection fleets, Jake asked his staff. Captain Amy Carter, now his chief of staff, consulted her displays. 23 species have contributed ships to the protection service. We have enough firepower to defend any world that asks for help. And the council remnants? Still scattered and disorganized. The hegemony colonies are adapting well to civilian life. The academic researchers are helping with the war crimes trials. Even some of the Zentari are cooperating with the new government. The transformation had not been easy. Some species had taken their new freedom and used it to attack old enemies. The Melthari had tried to conquer the worlds that had once enslaved them. The depth swimmers had attempted to flood several planets in revenge for past wrongs. But humanity and their allies had stopped these conflicts quickly. The Protection Service was not just about defending against the old council. It was about preventing new tyrannies from taking their place. Captain Lisa Norton commanded one of the intervention fleets. Her ships had stopped the Melthari aggression by disabling their weapons and forcing negotiations instead of allowing conquest. The key is responding fast, she explained to new Protection Service officers. Do not let conflicts grow into wars. Stop the fighting. Force everyone to talk and help them find solutions that work for everyone. The human approach to galactic peacekeeping was different from the Council's methods. Instead of ruling through fear, humans protected through strength used wisely. Instead of crushing dissent, they encouraged negotiation and compromise. Dr. Helen Barnes had been working on new technologies to help maintain peace. Her latest creation was a communication system that could translate not just words, but emotions and cultural concepts between different species. The biggest cause of conflict is misunderstanding, she explained to President Harper. When species can truly understand each other, they are much less likely to fight. The system was being tested in the assembly building, where representatives from radically different cultures needed to work together. Early results were promising. Species that had been enemies for centuries were finding common ground when they could really understand each other's perspectives. Frank Collins had transformed his intelligence network into something completely different. Instead of spying on enemies, his agents now worked to prevent conflicts before they started. We identify problems early, he told the Assembly Security Committee. Economic disputes, resource conflicts, cultural misunderstandings. We help solve them before they become wars. The old council had used fear and secrecy to maintain control. The new galaxy ran on transparency and cooperation. But the biggest change was in how species thought about themselves and each other. On the former slave world of Kepler 442b, Vortan children were learning about their real history for the first time. They discovered that their people had once been brilliant scientists and engineers before the council destroyed their civilization. We are not just workers, young Vortan students were learning. We are builders, creators, dreamers. We can be anything we choose to be. In the Zephyrian colonies, Dr. Yelnara was leading the largest medical research project in galactic history. Species from across the galaxy were sharing their knowledge to cure diseases and extend life for everyone. The council kept us separated so we could not learn from each other, she explained to her research team. Now we discover what we can accomplish when we work together. The architects had chosen to rebuild their homeworld from scratch, creating cities that celebrated freedom instead of hiding oppression. Their new designs were being copied by species across the galaxy. Beauty should lift the spirit, not crush it, Zefhari explained as he showed visitors around the new capital city. Our old buildings were prisons disguised as palaces. These new ones are homes for free people. Even former council species were finding new purposes. Many Zentari had become teachers, sharing their knowledge of galactic history to help others avoid repeating past mistakes. Academic researchers were using their skills to preserve the cultures that the council had tried to destroy. Vexathari himself had made an unexpected choice. The former council speaker had agreed to stand trial for his crimes, but he had also volunteered to help design safeguards for the new government. I know how power corrupts, he told the Constitutional Convention. I know how good intentions can become tyranny. Help me help you avoid the mistakes we made. His testimony led to the creation of the Accountability Protocols, systems designed to prevent any single person or species from gaining too much power in the new galaxy. President Harper stood in the completed assembly building, watching representatives from across the galaxy. take their seats for the first official session. The chamber was designed so that no one species sat higher than any other. Every voice was equal. 1 year ago, the council ruled through fear, she said in her opening address. Today, we govern through hope. 1 year ago, strength meant the ability to dominate others. Today, strength means the ability to protect the weak and defend the innocent. The Assembly's first act was to formally declare the Articles of Galactic Freedom as the foundation law for all member species. The second act was to establish the Protection Service as a permanent force for peacekeeping. The third act was to create the Cultural Preservation Initiative, designed to help species recover traditions that the Council had suppressed. Admiral Morrison watched the proceedings from the observation deck. Earth had started this revolution to protect themselves, but it had become something much larger. Humanity had not just defeated an empire, they had helped birth a new kind of civilization. What happens now? Amy Carter asked as they watched the representatives debate and vote and argue and compromise. Jake smiled. Now we do the hard work. Running a galaxy based on freedom is much more difficult than ruling one through fear. But it is also much more rewarding. Dr. Barnes joined them at the observation window. The nanobots are reporting from across the galaxy. 78% of habitable worlds are now under democratic governments. Trade between species is up 400%. Scientific cooperation has reached levels never seen before. And the remaining council holdouts, isolated and shrinking, most are expected to join the Assembly within 5 years. The few that do not will be quarantined until they agree to respect the rights of their own people. President Harper looked out at the stars visible through the Assembly's transparent dome. Somewhere out there were billions of beings who had been slaves yesterday and were free citizens today. The revolution that began with humanity's refusal to surrender had transformed the entire galaxy. The Council had fallen not because humans had better weapons, but because they had a better idea, that all intelligent beings deserved to be free. As she watched the Assembly continue its work, President Harper reflected on the strange journey that had brought them here. The aliens had come to destroy Earth because they feared what humans might become. In trying to stop humanity, they had created exactly what they feared. A species powerful enough to reshape the galaxy. But instead of becoming conquerors, humans had become liberators. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can threaten is someone who truly believes that freedom is worth fighting for. The age of the Galactic Council was over. The age of galactic freedom had begun. The giant meeting hall on Harmony Prime Station buzzed with alien voices. Jake Morrison sat at the human table, watching the strange creatures around him. To his left sat Colonel Lisa Harper, her military uniform crisp and clean. On his right, Peter Grant shuffled through papers with nervous energy. 18 months they had been here. 18 long months of talking, arguing, and getting nowhere. The peace talks were supposed to fix the problems between humans and the other species in the galaxy. Instead, they had become a joke. Chairman Vexitar towered above them all. His crystal-like skin caught the station's lights and threw them back in sharp angles. The Zelani leader looked down at the humans like they were insects. Behind him, other alien species watched with cold eyes. The bug-like Kythera clicked their mandibles and released sweet-smelling chemicals into the air. Jake had learned this meant they were annoyed. The Vorthan floated nearby as balls of colored light, pulsing with what their translators called superior amusement. The Galactic Council has reached a decision, Vextar announced. His voice sounded like breaking glass. We present the Containment Accord for human consideration. A holographic document appeared above the table. Jake read it once, then twice, then a third time. Each word made his anger grow hotter. The treaty was not about peace. It was about putting humans in a cage. The Council wanted to lock humanity into their current 12 star systems. No more exploration, no more colonies, no more growth, but that was not the worst part. The Accord demanded that humans give up 3 frontier colonies. New Plymouth, where Jake's own daughter lived with her family. Carson's World, home to 2 million settlers. Haven Station, humanity's furthest outpost. The Council called these buffer zones. Jake called it theft. Furthermore, Vextar continued, humanity will submit to Galactic Council oversight of all military development. Your species has shown concerning aggressive tendencies that require monitoring. Colonel Harper's hand moved to her sidearm. Jake put a gentle hand on her wrist and shook his head. Not yet. The Council graciously offers humanity a choice, one of the Kythera ambassadors said through its translator. Accept these reasonable limitations or face the consequences of your continued defiance. Jake stood slowly. The room fell silent. Even the ever-shifting Vorthons stopped their dancing patterns of light. Ambassador Morrison? Vextar's voice carried a note of mockery. Does the human delegation require time to consider this generous offer? Jake looked around the room at faces that showed no respect, no friendship, no understanding. For 18 months he had tried to find common ground with these beings. He had smiled when they insulted his species. He had stayed calm when they called humans primitive. He had hoped that patience and diplomacy would win the day. He had been wrong. The human delegation finds these terms unacceptable, Jake said. His voice was quiet but clear. We came here in good faith seeking peaceful coexistence. Instead, we find ourselves treated as criminals awaiting sentencing. Murmurs filled the hall. Several alien delegates leaned forward, surprised by the humans' bold words. Unacceptable? Vextar laughed, a sound like ice cracking. You are in no position to make demands, human. Your species controls barely a dozen worlds. The Council represents thousands of systems and millions of ships. Jake nodded to Peter, who began packing their documents. Lisa stood and straightened her uniform jacket. The message was clear without words. You're leaving? The Kythera ambassador's translator buzzed with confusion. The negotiations are not complete. Yes, they are, Jake replied. He picked up the human flag from their table and folded it carefully. These were never negotiations. This was a trial, and you had already decided our guilt before we arrived. The room erupted in alien voices. Translators worked overtime to convert clicks, whistles, and light patterns into words. Jake ignored them all. You cannot simply leave, Vextar said, rising to his full height. The Council's authority extends to all civilized species in this galaxy. Jake stopped at the chamber doors. He turned back to face the assembled aliens one last time. Chairman Vextar, in my species history, we have a saying. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. We offered you our friendship. You have chosen to make us your enemy. Your species lacks the wisdom for true civilization, Vextar declared. His crystal skin flashed with anger. Perhaps isolation will teach you humility. The Council will ensure you learn your place. Jake smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Chairman, you have just made the greatest mistake in galactic history. Humanity has spent centuries learning that sometimes peace must be won through strength. We tried diplomacy. We tried patience. We tried understanding. He paused, letting his words sink in. Now you will learn why every predator in Earth's history eventually learned to fear humans. We are not the prey you think we are. We are what prey becomes when it decides to stop running. The chamber doors hissed shut behind the human delegation. Inside, the alien delegates sat in stunned silence. Outside, Jake Morrison walked toward the docking bay where the human transport waited. Sir? Peter said quietly. Earth Command is requesting immediate communication. Tell them the talks have failed, Jake replied. Tell them the Council has chosen war over peace. And then, sir? Jake looked out a viewport at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, human colonies were going about their daily lives. Children played in parks under alien suns. Farmers tended crops in foreign soil. Scientists made discoveries that pushed the boundaries of knowledge. All of it was about to change. Then we go home. Peter. We go home and remind the galaxy why humans survived every extinction event their planet could throw at them. We show them what happens when you corner a species that refused to die out when the universe itself wanted them gone. The human transport detached from Harmony Prime and jumped to hyperspace. Behind them, the Galactic Council began making plans to teach humanity its place. They had no idea they had just awakened something that had been sleeping for too long. The age of human diplomacy was over. The age of human war was about to begin.